We're hot on the heels of Paupergeddon, and oh my god, it is crazy. Let's check it out. Hey guys, welcome back to Casting Commons, the show where we talk and discuss all things Pauper. I am your host, Teasdale, and this is my co-host, the Thermocast himself, Reese.
Hello.
Before we start, do not forget to hit that like, subscribe, and follow button so you never miss an upload. It also helps the algorithm and helps with our amazing exposure. Not that we need it because, you know, obviously we got to shout out Paupergeddon, so that's all I'm saying. So, speaking of Paupergeddon, did anything happen this week? Did we miss anything?
Obviously, a pretty big Pauper week in general. A lot of my time was spent watching the Paupergeddon stream, which basically I know yours was as well, because there was a Friday event for like the best Pauper player of the year or Pauper player of the year, something like that. And then obviously the 2-day like GP style main event of Paupergeddon. Alongside that, I guess, for actual playing of Magic, I finished updating some decks with MH3 cards, and played in the local FNM. I ended up using Blue-Black Terror with Snackers, which was interesting. Like, it seems like the deck that you would have thought, oh, these just auto go in. And they were sort of fine, but if you drew them, or like if you drew multiple, they were just bad. You needed to like really like mill them with thought scours and mental notes and stuff like that. They did basically win a game by themselves in like a grinder game against Boros Ephemerate, but I wasn't like blown away by them, which I thought I probably would have been.
Did you play like the sort of Blue-Black Terror just with, instead of that sort of spare slot of like Falage or whatever as Snacker, or did you play like the sort of Michael Jacobs list with the Modern Age and things like that?
No, I had the like the first one with the Gurmags and Terrors, and then just the Snackers. I looked at the Modern Age one, but like losing Gurmag Angler seemed like a pretty big cost. And like the Modern Age, it's fine, but it's just fine. Like it's not amazing.
Yeah. I think the thing that surprised me more on, not on Terror, but on like Grixis Affinity, for example, is having 2 flying bodies that are reasonable, like Snacker and Refurb. Surprises how many games you just end up stealing. I imagine, as you're saying, with the Boros Ephemerate matchup, like getting 2 Snackers down that basically won the games themselves or whatever. I guess that's probably where the Modern Age and Snacker sort of shine, is having, say, 8 flying threats is against in Terror where you don't actually expect it, is quite surprising. Yeah. Maybe. But obviously
I don't know. I feel like it's bad in Affinity as well. I feel like it just probably shouldn't be in that deck either.
Well, that's totally reasonable. That's for another discussion.
But yeah, the big bonus on them, which is sort of what you're alluding to there, is it essentially negates Initiative and Monarch against Terror, which both are pretty good against Terror because they're usually only attacking with 1 or 2 creatures. But yeah, the Snackers could just steal the Initiative or steal the Monarch so easy. And that ended up that game that I finished against Boros Ephemerate, where the Snackers basically won it by themselves. That was why they got the Monarch, and then I just thought scoured into 2 Snackers, drew some cards, and then they basically ended the game. And then having the Monarch with the Snackers meant they could block and then essentially come back in my turn if I just played 1 cantrip. But yeah, I was they were fine, but I was sort of underwhelmed. That said, after watching all the like Paupergeddon and looking at deck lists and that, they look a lot better when you can discard them.
Yeah.
As we'll see with the like Red Black Madness decks.
Yeah.
What about yourself? How have you done this weekend?
So all I did really was, well, the actual weekend was basically just taking a watch on Paupergeddon. I think I was just saying to you before we started, I think I missed like 4 games. My wife was on a hen do, so me and my son were just sat and watched Paupergeddon pretty much all of Saturday, pretty much, for the most part, until it was finished. I will make him like Magic. You know, he's not even 1 year old, but he will like Magic by the end of this year. Not necessarily just Magic, but Pauper. Other than that, through the week, I kind of just did a bit of recording. I ended up, I was convinced this was it Tuesday maybe? Tuesday night, Wednesday night, something like that. I was 4-0 through a league with a black-green brood scale combo deck, and I couldn't get the time to finish the last game, which was quite annoying because if I had just carried on that game there and then, I would have been the first person to 5-0 with brood scale. But then by the time of me getting a chance to play that last game, and ultimately I did end up 5-0, there was like 5 different brood skill decks, which was quite unfortunate. And the thing that surprised me is all were different as well.
I guess you might still have a chance of being in like the league deck dump then if it's different enough to the other ones. But...
Well, the way Daybreak do now, they just update them all. So it was up there.
Right.
It is up there. Yeah. So now they just give you every single one. Not only that, but they're pretty live as well. So when they do work, if you click on the 5-0 league, say, if you click on the 5-0 league at 9 in the morning, for example, for us, there'll be 2 decks there. By 11 o'clock, there could be 8 decks there. They're pretty live. They update it as a live page.
Oh, sweet.
So it usually takes like an hour or 2 to get on the page, which is pretty good going. But yeah, so that was quite good. I was convinced that combo was definitely real, but we'll carry on with talking about how real it is.
That's lies. You said it was a meme.
Yeah, so when we first, I think I said to you previously that when we first started, we were definitely like looking at these cards and it's like, this combo is a meme. This combo is 110% a meme. And then I thought, let's go, first day content, what video could I possibly want out there? And I just literally put a Mogwart shell together and just jammed the Glee combo in there. And as soon as I cast this combo, I was like, this is a real combo. Like, I literally played one game and was like, I played the lizard, and I was like, this is real. I don't know why, this is a real combo. And the more you play, there's this deck's class.
I think the big thing for me is it is so cheap. Like, if, like, sadistically it was 2 mana, or if the lizard was 3 mana, I'll be like, yeah, it's probably not going to get there. But the fact, like, it's super low to the ground, it does that. It's definitely a real deck, as we will see.
And against decks that don't interact, attacking is an actual thing as well. I have killed people with actual combat, not even in a I have other threats version, which we'll talk on later, but like actually like a dedicated combo version. I've just literally went, here's 2 lizards, make them both 3/3s, and I'm gonna kill you in 3 turns with these.
Yeah, it's similar to like the Mogwart's backup plan, isn't it? Really, where like people just keep holding up for your combo, and then you've chipped them to death.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely pretty sweet. I also, the only thing I recorded quite a bit last week and the week before because there's too many sweet things to brew. I usually put 2 videos out a week, but I think I did 4 last week, including the podcast. I was like, this is nice. I was like, there's too much content to put out because Modern Horizons 3 is sweet. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's exactly what I did that week. Do you want to move on?
Yeah, go for it.
So we have quite a bit of news. The main one, tournament news. Next weekend, now that Paupergeddon is over, the Monarch is here. 29th of June at Sheffield. There is the Monarch Event, which you can buy your tickets. Check the link in the description below. And yeah, great event. We unfortunately won't be there. We are both tied up doing things. But it will be a well-run event. I can guarantee you that for sure. The prize support looks pretty good. Other than that, if you want to check out the other UK-based events, please check out Paupergeddon, as they are retweeting like crazy, which includes the Badger LPI International League, which does qualify you for a buy or something at Paupergeddon. Or potentially even next year's Player of the Year, if you win that league, I believe.
Right.
Moving on to actual news. So we are going to skim over the challenge deck lists for, well, multiple reasons. One, because Paupergeddon, and, you know, we would rather dive into a 600-odd player event than skim over a 60-player event. It just makes sense. But second of all, the deck lists are down currently as recording and have been down all weekend. They are currently
They're
I
still
don't
down now.
I don't know why, but they basically just took them down and they haven't got an update. I checked the Discord, see if they had an update before we started recording, but they don't. And second of all, the Sunday 64 never fired either. And the only reason that we have been given is due to Paupergeddon. A lot of Italians must play on Sunday.
Hopefully that is the reason, because that's it's very odd that doesn't fire and doesn't like overfire as well. Like usually it's like 68 to 70 people. So hopefully that's back to normal next week.
Yeah. But yeah, and that's pretty much it. So we covered them on Friday and the Saturday challenge. Just glimpse of them. I basically ended up asking Bako. I just messaged Bako and was like, what was the top 8s like on Friday? Because we didn't have it. But luckily, Kirby played in the Saturday challenge. And because he does his data mining thing that gets his the wins and losses, he basically knew what won and he knew the order. So that was handy for the Saturday. But Friday, I just basically asked Bako because we had no way of finding the deck, what actually won or did well.
But we also, because of that, we don't have lists. So it's just going to be a rough overview rather than a look at the list.
And there's one deck list that we're not 100% sure on. Well, not deck list, one name. We don't know what came 7th exactly. Just based on Bako's memory. Yeah. So, would you like to go over the Friday?
Yeah. So, Friday the 21st, first place was Kuldotha. Second and third were a pair of Grixis Affinities. Fourth was Jund Glee combo. Fifth was Jund Gardens. Sixth was Blue Red Spread. Seventh, we think, was a Walls deck. I'm not sure which one. And eighth was Black Red Madness. I guess as a rough overview, obviously it's pretty varied. Obviously we've got a mix of control, combo, aggro with the Kuldotha and the Black Red Madness. Maybe 2 combo decks if the Walls is a combo deck. If not, we've got obviously the Jund Glee combo, the new combo. Pretty interesting to see Gardens there. It's a deck that is like pretty hard dropped off lately. I'm not really sure why. I guess maybe the matchups have just got a bit awkward for it.
I think it does struggle generally against Ponza, especially with such efficient threats as well. Like the Chrysalis is pretty good at obviously outscale and defile, especially if you get it early, and then obviously the Cascade into other threats is just pretty minging. So I'm surprised that it actually ended up doing quite well. It was also Luffy, so which is quite expected. We could pull up a list because he did post it, to be fair, but it was basically just his like his mono black list or his black red list that he's been running with retrofitted Transmogrant, but basically having the green and the red for sideboard cards, and I think Avenging Hunter.
Did it actually have Calmly Gardens in this time?
I think so. I'm not gonna lie, I can't say I really stared at it very often. The main thing I did look at was the fact that they posted the top 8, so that meant I could see who top 8'd and search them on Twitter.
Yeah, if that is the case, it's cool to see him developing that like Transmogrant sort of shell. The card is pretty interesting. I know I watched one of your videos that you were playing it. Was it? I can't remember. Was it in the Glee deck maybe?
No, it was zombies.
Oh, the zombie deck. And I felt like the deck was really bad, but that card was really good.
Yeah.
And it definitely impressed me seeing playing just like against control decks. You just end the turn, bring it back, they kill it, you just bring it back again. Just like an inevitable threat. For such like a low cost as well.
And it's not an irrelevant number as well. Like it's not like inevitable threat that's like a 2/2 that basically gets blocked for days with a Skyfisher, for example.
Yeah.
It like actually does kill pretty much a lot of things. So being a 3/3 and all is quite a strong thing. I was impressed with the Transmogrant as well. Sweet card for sure.
And I guess the only real standout for me on this Friday's first place Kuldotha was sort of not what I'd expected. The decks obviously took quite a big drop lately, but still can clearly perform. Yeah.
I guess when we touch on Paupergeddon, I think it sort of, to me, the reasoning behind it is I feel like a lot of people were in the same mindset going into Paupergeddon as there were these weekend challenges. So I can sort of understand, looking back at it, why Cold Author was like the winner. But going into it, I definitely agree. Like Cold Author was definitely not a deck that I would think would be well positioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
The only thing I want to mention is the blue-red Scred list from Spock. Of course, it was Spock.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to be anybody else. Basically, I did see when I was searching what they were playing, he mentioned that he was predicting Ponza, Walls, and Grix Affinity. And basically, because of that, his list was actually surprisingly interesting. It didn't have any Augur Bolus in because the card's bad against all those 3 matchups. So he basically just put more spells and other type of monarchy threats in. So it was quite an interesting list. So if you do want to check him out on Twitter, or when the deck lists go back live, because the list's quite interesting for blue-red Scred players.
Sweet.
That's it. Want to move on to Saturday?
Yeah. So Saturday the 22nd, I think you're a bit more confident in these lists. Being actually correct.
Yep.
First place was Mugwort. Second was Combo Walls. Third was Black White Blade. Fourth was Bogles. Fifth was Cold Author. Sixth was Jungly Combo. Seventh was another copy of Bogles. And eighth was Ponza. And then the 2 near misses we've got for this one, White Weenie in 9th and another copy of the Jungly Combo deck in 10th. The Black White Blade deck, I'm assuming that had the familiar in.
Yeah. So yeah, it was basically just sort of like, I don't know if people have been following Paupergeddon. It was what Gavin played on Friday on a side event, which was basically just Black White Blade with Retrofitter in. Refurbished Familiar. Sorry,
Refurbished.
Refurbished Familiar. Which I think's a solid deck. It's very much, my only thing about the deck is very much the Refurbished Familiar is very much like the Boros' experimental synthesizer, is that the deck doesn't function unless you see refurb. So it was always a weak deck that was very reliant on your opponents having bad Tithe and Blade matchups and hoping that you recur and Tithe and Blade is good enough. Where I think now they've got refurb, is Tithe and Blade, to be fair, is generally not that great anyways.
No.
At the minute. But then, so that makes it very much reliant on how many refurbs do you see. And which I think's a bit awkward for the deck. And it's very conflict. Like, it's not like the deck was obviously a deck before Modern Horizons 3, but the deck now is like this really weird place where 4 of your cards that you want to recur is Tithe and Blade and they're either dead, or 4 of your cards are either refurb, and in some matchups they're also dead. Very few, like a lot less. But then it sort of puts that real heavy weight that you just draw the right half of your deck. And it's not like the refurb familiars like supported the Tithe and Blade, if that makes sense. It's more pulled it in 2 different directions. If that sort of makes sense what I'm trying to get at. Which is quite surprised it's there.
It's an interesting one. Like you said, the edicts in general at the moment are just pretty bad.
Yeah.
Like you've got the Bogles decks there that edicts are solid against, but basically everything else it's bad against.
Yeah.
And then sort of the same with the Friday Challenger as well. Like there's no real good edict matchups there at all.
No.
Especially with just basically just there's so many spawns, there's so many sneaky snackers, like goblin tokens, putrid goblins, like just there's so much stuff that edict's just irrelevant against. That sort of half of the deck then now lets it down. So you are really leaning heavily into the refurb package, and then if the refurb package isn't like great, it's sort of it's just going to let the deck down. It's a very like metagame call up for the good matchups deck, I think.
Yeah, I definitely tend to agree, and I think the one thing that I would like to add there is edicts generally are bad, but specifically edicts like Tithe and Blade and Chainers, where they just say sack a generic creature, as well, worse. Like are even worse. Like there is places for your Extract Confessions and your Accursed Marauders, but Tide and Blade in general is just not that great. Like, you're not gonna sit there against Gardens and you're just I'm gonna make you sack your Avenging Hunter all the time. Like, it's the chances of that are slim. Like, even Ponza, like Edicts used to be okay against because you either hit early, you hit the Arbor Elf, or late you hit that one big threat that we're gonna play. And that is definitely just not the case anymore. They just splurge full of random chaff.
Yeah, I think even in particular against Bogles, like the Titan Blade is obviously good, but it's just worse than all the other options. Like the first Titan Blade is probably not going to do it. They'll have something to play around it. So you are going to need to recur it like a couple of times, even to beat a matchup where the Edicts are supposed to be good. Whereas like with Extractor Confession or the Marauder, it literally just does its job right away.
The other thing I guess we want to mention is the Bogles list that came fourth. They did tweet us out mentioning this list, and it was wild. I do recommend, first of all, following us on Twitter, and then seeing what people have obviously tagged us in, because then you get to see the list, you see. Big brain. If you follow us, you would have seen it. And it was pretty interesting, because I really liked a few things about it. My main one was the landscape in the main. Like, I really do like that, not only because of, generally, I do think people prefer Ash Barons for Bogles, which I do agree with, but I also think you're in a Ponza world where it's, the amount of games against Bogles with Ponza I've played, that I just won a game because I just went, okay, I'll Thermocast you, Utopia's World land, you're not casting any white spells, I'll kill you.
I think this list in particular is a bit different though, because just for more context, it essentially had blue in the side for 4 Blighted Agents and then 4 Glistener Elves to back that up, and a single island. So when you've got that island as well as the obviously Forest and Plains, the landscape probably becomes a bit better, because you're sort of less likely to need or to know what you need on turn 1, 2, 3. So just like delaying that land drop may be worthwhile. But if you're only 2 colours, like they're just not being able to get the green immediately feels awkward in Bogles. So you've got so many like green 1-drops. The Ash Baron sort of means like you can play your planes and then cycle it and then play a 1-drop and a enchantment or something like that. Whereas if it's a landscape, you sort of have to go a weird way about it.
Yeah, which is true.
But yeah, I guess with all the Ponza, it could be a bit more relevant. But you're going to have some targets for Ponza anyway. You're going to Utopia Sprawl or Abundant Growth or something on something else.
Very true. But the thing I do like about Landscape, which really shone for me, obviously it's a different deck in like a green-black, like the green-black Glee combo deck. I played 4 Jund Landscapes, and anytime I was on the draw, just leading on that land. You literally just, obviously in that deck you do have like Chromatic Stars and Implements to play, so you do have actual colourless cards to play. But against Ponza, just on the draw, just playing a landscape, if they can't Thermocast you on 2 like they're going to, it actually means they have to stop playing actual spells to then Thermocast you, so then it's a win all round. Like, the mana doesn't work. Because the combo deck the Ponza deck is trying to go 1, 3, 4/5, 5, 6, 7. Like, it's trying to do exact numbers. It gets really awkward for them, and I've found that might be, obviously it's not necessarily the case, but that helps. I've found against Ponza.
I think in general, I think the landscapes are better. Like 90% of decks, they are just a better choice. But just I'm not 100% convinced of it being Bogles as that deck,
which is true.
But yeah, it was definitely a weird list. The main deck that had communes alongside the Rumbles, which is something we haven't really seen yet. Most people obviously just cut the communes for the Rumbles. And then, like I say, in the sideboard there was 8 infect creatures and an island, which doesn't make a huge amount of sense to me. Like, the idea, I guess, is your opponent to cut the spot removal after sideboard, but then they're gonna have edicts and stuff anyway. So is infect any different, really?
Yeah, I think
I guess it might kill slightly faster,
I think, yeah,
depending on what you draw.
the interesting thing is that they responded to someone saying, elaborate on the infect creatures. They said they bring it inverse Ponzo, walls, poison, elves, and anything that's faster than you. And I guess the only thing I can think of is any deck that runs any amount of life gain. Like, poison obviously tries to get you by
Like weather
the storm. Like, it obviously negates that strategy. Which I can see but obviously if your main reason you're bringing that in is against weathers, there's not a lot of weathers around, so then it's kind of like,
yeah. To be fair, against stuff like elves and walls, like combo walls or even cascade walls, it does make quite a bit of sense. To be fair, I guess even against something like Ponza, they don't really have any removal anymore.
No.
Like, even after sideboard, like, they're not going to bring in removal against the Bogles. Like, they're not going to bring in bulks against the Bogles deck.
No.
Yeah, I guess, and Blighted Agent is unblockable,
Hmm.
but it is also pretty hard to cast. With just one island and then, like, your sprawls and such.
Yeah, you're very much reliant on, getting your 1 mana auras on your lands early, like your Abundant Growth or your Utopia Sprawls, but then not have them Ponzer it away, which is a bit awkward. But yeah, it seemed to obviously work coming forward. It'd be interesting to see if people do adopt that sideboard strategy again moving forward. Yeah. But
yeah, it's cool.
The only other thing as well that I'm unsure on is the white decks in the top 10. How much Thraben Charms they ran. Obviously must be quite few, unless obviously I think it was Baco that came first with Mogwarts. So I expect a lot of Thraben Charms in the main for a lot of decks. But the one thing to note is this is the only one that Kirby has the data for, this challenge, because it's a challenge that they played. And there was 0 copies of Corgate. Not one person played Corgate in the Saturday challenge, which, when you're expecting a field for Ponza, I'm not surprised at all. Would you like to move on to what we are here for? Because we have brushed past the the Jund Glee combo decks in both Friday and Saturday for that particular reason.
So yeah, obviously going into Paupergeddon, the Friday event was the Player of the Year 2024. There was 118 players. So even the small event on the Friday was pretty big. First place was Corgate. Second place was Hybrid Walls. Third was Grixis Affinity. Fourth was Ponza. Fifth was another copy of Grixis Affinity. Sixth was Jeskai FM. Seventh was Ponza, and eighth was the Green-Black Glee combo. I guess that sort of goes against the Corgate is bad against Ponza, or this Corgate player was just extremely lucky in a field that had a lot of Ponza.
Yeah, just to clarify, the 118 players, 12 players picked Corgate, which was tied with Grixis Affinity, and then the most played deck was Ponza at 17 players. But the winner mentioned that the round 6 was or something like that was the first time they versed against Ponza, and they basically ID'd in the top 8.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think there must have been 5-0 and just double ID'd in the top 8 after going round 6 and round 7 both against Ponza.
Yeah. So yeah, that's fair enough. Like, obviously it's just lottery in it on your matchups.
Yeah. I guess if you just want to go through each list, because they're all pretty interesting. The Corgate list, I guess, is probably one of the least changed, but even has quite a bit of like tweaking. It's a lot lower on creatures. It's just down to 10 actual creatures, obviously 4 Modern Age as well. But 4 Sacred Cat, 4 Squadron Hawks, and 2 Guardians. And that's essentially to make space to run 4 Thraben Charms alongside 2 Journeys. So Corgate on a lot, like 2 to 3 more removal spells in the main than usual.
Yep. And every time, I'm almost certain it was this pilot, but every time that Corgate was on camera, they had Thraben Charms in the main, and it impressed me every time.
Yeah,
I
the
was
card is very good.
I knew the card was good, and the one deck that I was unsure on was Corgate because of the creature count. I was like, is it going to be replacing Journey because the creature count's not going to be high enough? Total bollocks. It's absolutely insane. Like, even in a deck with, like, as I said, 12, what is that? 14 creatures, including the Modern Age.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it worked. Like, having 2 creatures kills a Mirror Enforcer.
yeah. I
Like,
think that's the main sticker, isn't it? That it's twice deal damage equal to twice the number of
yeah,
creatures you control. So you actually don't really need that many creatures for it to be good. Yeah, it's been a really impressive card, to be honest. All the mods I've seen big cast, and they've all been really good.
yeah, very, very relevant. I got with it as well. I was playing Mogwarts, which, to be fair, I think it'll be live probably by the time this goes up. My round one, my opponent was playing white. I don't know what they were playing. If they were playing white weenie or black white blade or something like that. And I was like, they've got a cast down. It's alright. I can combo off here. And then literally the Thraben charm me and exile my putrid goblin in response. I was like, why did I forget about that card? Card is very good. Do you want to move on to the walls?
Yeah. Second place was the Hybrid Walls deck. This is a sort of a deck that's been getting a bit of steam lately, and it's really been quite impressive. It's surprising how strong the transition into the sideboard is. Like, you've got the better, I say better, the more resilient game one deck, that has sort of a wider array of good matchups. And then you can sideboard into the more powerful deck when your matchups have favoured the combo side of things.
Which is it's a quite good way of doing it, to be fair. Like, the main board having all the creatures, so like the Altasaurs and the Boredom Pies against your sort of control. Like, Cascade obviously is a strong thing to have. Avenging Hunter's pretty good, like, still. In a deck like this, where you have surprisingly amount of reach creatures, right? You've got the Tuk-Tuks and are they not running the other elf? The one
No, there's no Jesper Sentinels.
That's the card I was thinking of.
Generous End does have reach as well, and does Annoyed Altasaur as well.
But so you can get round the snackers and the refurbs and things like that. But then you're just generally having really good, efficient threats, which generally will get the job done. And then against, like, your Colgates or your other decks that you don't really, they're gonna have answers to your threats. Just combo kill them is definitely a way to go.
I think as well, it's sort of the opposite to Colgate, where Colgate sort of feels like an awkward meta call into loads of Ponza.
Yeah.
Whereas this just seems like a really good meta call into a load of Ponza.
100%.
They can't interact with you, so you're going to do more powerful stuff than they can do. And your lands can be protected by, like, Quirion Rangers and stuff as well. Yeah. So you sort of negate both parts of the deck.
Yeah. And you play they play roughly the same threats, but you generally will do it faster.
Yeah, if not, or play more of them. Yeah.
Or on par as well, so it's pretty good.
I guess the
removal with Valakut Invoker, which is actually not nothing. You can get to these weird board stalls and you're just like, I'll make 50 mana and start shooting your guys and then I'll kill you. Or just kill you in general.
I think the last thing for me that's really impressed me from this deck is the one-off Gingerbread Cabbage. It's like just insane against aggro. Like, pairing that with Quirion Ranger and just making food every turn. Just like food every turn. And then just being able to crack it with obviously all your mana off battlements and Axebanes. Like, aggro struggles to get through that. Once you've, like, made free food, like, you've essentially drawn 3 cards against them. Like, if they whiff, you're just going to whiff.
Yeah. It's a solid one, to be fair. It'll obviously come up in awkward scenarios where it's like you're only landing, it'll come in tap notes. But when it matters, it really, really does matter. It'll literally hard carry you. Like, they'll struggle to take through 3 of your walls to take so much damage, like to hit you for 2, and then you're just like, I'll just game 9. It's alright anyways.
Yeah. Definitely worth running if you are thinking about playing walls.
Yeah. Sweet deck.
Third place was the Grixis Affinity.
Yeah.
This was a sneaky snacker build of Grixis Affinity. Aside from that, there's sort of not much that would be unexpected. I guess the main standout is the threats or the
Mm.
creatures in particular in the main. There's no cracklands in the main.
Mm.
There's 2 in the side, but none in the main. Again, maybe feels like a bit of a meta call towards we expect there's going to be a lot of Ponza cracklands. Not great against Ponza. Like, it has some utility there, but not a lot.
Mm.
And I guess Kuldotha as well was sort of expected to be on a bit of a down, so you maybe don't need that many cracklands in the main.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can definitely get behind that. And one thing the casters did mention when they were talking about affinity in the meta share is that every single Grix affinity that was registered for the Player of the Year, all of them were playing Snacker and for Snacker affinity, which is surprising to me, to be honest, because it's not clear cut how good this card is in affinity. And
no, and I think we'll sort of see that more as well when we go into the actual Paupergeddon top 8.
And it's I'm Switzerland in this now. I'm 100% on the fence because I honestly I can see its pros 100%. Like the card when you bring them back 3 of them and all that sort of stuff, and you're deadly disputing it and yada yada. Like it looks good, but then the only real way you've got to get it out is by paying blue and a black for it and putting it onto the battlefield, and that is just like it's fine, but it's awkward. Yeah. Unsure.
Yeah, I think I'm really not a fan of it in Affinity. If I build Affinity back up, I probably wouldn't have it in mine. It just feels so clunky to cast. Like in Magical Christmas Land, it's amazing. Once you've got it in play, and then you can like sack it to munitions and then Deadly Dispute, and then get 2 of them back, and then Deadly Dispute 1 away. It's like insane. But to get it in play, it's dead awkward, and it's not an artifact, so it doesn't advance your plan. It doesn't make any of your familiars or Mare Enforcers cheaper. It doesn't make your Gal Blasts come online. Like, it just feels awkward.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. I could probably see a world where it's good, like as in meta world. I think as mentioned before, having refurb and snacker, it does help against like initiative. So I could maybe see it potentially either being a 2 of or in the sideboard or whatever to hedge
in that
those.
same vein, though, like you could just put Kenku in. Like that's the other thing is this is like removing space from like legitimately like really good affinity cards.
Yeah.
Like obviously Frogmites have gone, Kenkus have gone. There's no Crackland Shamans. Like, is that worth the sneaky snagger?
Like I know what you mean, definitely, but the fact that you're always going to be drawing cards and it always comes back at that point. Like I could see a world where it's definitely there, but it's definitely to me it's still up in the air whether it deserves a place in Affinity for sure. Yeah, spicy to see that it obviously still managed to get there. Come third was the second most played deck or tied for the second most played deck, and still managed to get there in the top 8 as well.
Yeah, the shell, like the Affinity shell, is still just really powerful. Obviously, refurbished familiars just added to that. But it definitely feels like there's a lot of refining to do. It feels probably like the most powerful, least refined deck in Pauper at the moment. Moving on.
Yep.
4th place is our first Ponza deck. Yeah, Ponza was a big gainer from On Horizons 3. Obviously gaining the main card being Writhing Chrysalis. But also this one is playing 4 Eldrazi Repurposer, which is sort of like a Jewel Thief-esque card, but also pumps your Chrysalis with your stacking of spawns.
Interesting. It's definitely filler to support Chrysalis. I don't know if it's definitely needed, but it's still a good solid body. Like a 3/3 is nothing to scoff at. But yeah, it's definitely there to support the Chrysalis 100%.
Yeah,
it's
it obviously fits in that Jewel Thief Landmark Visionary slot. Whether it's actually better than those cards, I'm not certain. Like obviously when you've got Chrysalis, it's good. When you've got multiple Chrysalis, it's insane. But like when you cascade into it, if you don't have a Chrysalis, it's probably just worse than like a Landwire Visionary because you don't get a redraw. When you top decking it and you don't have like the synergy to make it bigger, or you don't have a need to make your Chrysalis bigger, it's again worse than a Visionary because you don't have that redraw. It's a weird one. I guess, and the other add to this deck as well is 2 Malevolent Rumbles, which in general has just been like a really impressive card.
Not just in Ponza, but in generally, I would definitely argue it's probably the secret best card of Modern Horizons 3. The card is insane. And it's definitely surpassed anything that I thought it was. You think of it as just it's a commune with gods, or it's a this, or it's a that. Like, the spawn's very relevant in pretty much every matchup, every deck that you want to play this effect. And also hitting a permanent is just, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely the one we were most unsure on at this, like when we were looking at the spoilers. But yeah, it's been very impressive. And I guess then the last, it actually runs one more Modern Horizons card, and that is a Singleton Colossal Dread Mask.
Yeah, when I first played Pons, I played 2 of these, and I thought that it's just a meme more than anything. But the card is actually surprisingly good.
Yeah.
Especially when you're expecting like a lot of... You don't run removal, so there is... Because the deck now runs basically every threat makes mana, basically, in some capacity. Your board and parties will probably cascade into a mana, or if not, they'll cascade into a threat that's making you win the game. Same with Altasaur. But then after that, you've got your Writhing Chrysalises, which is basically a 2 mana 7/9 whatever. Doesn't actually, it's just huge. That also makes spawns, which makes mana. Your Repurposes make mana. Your Arbor Elf is mana. But you turn all these spawns, all these Arbor Elves, into actual game-winning threats. And then if you're against a deck with no removal, like the Mirror, your giant thing that doesn't have trample, i.e. your Board and Party, or your Chrysalis, now has +6/+6 and trample. The card surprised me. It's definitely never going to be a 4 of. But it's a nice card to just have that out to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think one's probably fine.
I feel like if Gardens was more represented, this card would be played a lot more.
Yeah.
Because it seems like the card that's there for beating Gardens, or decks like Gardens, where there's a bunch of removal and you end up being stuck with a bunch of all ones that you can then just suit up, or Arbor Elves, and suit up and smash with it. Like, it makes every creature you have a threat, no matter how big it is. As well as just randomly being snuff out proof because the germ's black.
Yeah. It obviously does get hit by a bit of accidental hate, like some decks are board in enchantment hate, like the Glamour or something against your Sprawls or whatever.
That seems a bold play. But putting into Glamour against Ponza.
You got to slow them down and get your land drops somehow. But yeah, so some people will. So that's why I always think it's never completely free. Like, you wouldn't want 4Es, just go, here's my big 6 mana 6/6 black German. It's like, your artifact's gone. Like, but it definitely is. It's definitely worth running. I would say at least 1, if not 2. And it's definitely a solid card. That definitely surprised me when I played it and also seen it be played. But this is also the closest, I would say, roughly, this sort of list, i.e. all of these cards in this deck, is definitely the sort of list what I would definitely run at the moment. In the main board in particular. I probably wouldn't run too far onto that, which also touches on the next Ponza deck that we touch on further down.
Yeah, I guess moving on from that, the 5th place was also Grixis Affinity. This list is very similar to the one we've spoken about. Essentially, the counter spells in the first one are swapped for rebukes. There's a Singleton Kenku in the main and a Singleton Lorien. Other than that, the list is basically the same. I don't know if you've got any further comments on that.
No, I couldn't. The way the Pauper Wave displayed the deck list, I couldn't see the island. So
Yeah,
I
the
thought there was
Singleton Island for your Singleton Lorien.
yeah. I was like, why is they running Lorien with no island? But yeah, no extra comments on that one. I don't think.
And then sixth place was Jeskai Ephemerate. Yeah, Jeskai one-offs, as we usually see from these Ephemerate decks. There is a one-off Thraben Charm in the main, which is sweet to see. Apart from that, it looks fairly stock. I guess it's the Scred Ephemerate, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
But rather than the just all-in Wildfire one. A Perilous Landscape as well. Other than that,
nothing too exciting. Opted to run Scred and not the Galvanic Discharge and the Attune with Tune the Narrative or whatever it's called and the Jolt to Work. You know, I'm going to disagree and say that's wrong, but, you know, I'm not a Jeskai Ephemerate master, so I could be proven wrong there also.
A couple of Cast Into the Fires in the main as well. Obviously, a pretty big meta call to I'm going to play against loads of affinity.
Fairly solid.
Going on from that, the seventh place was the second copy of Ponza. Again, I think this deck is fairly similar to the one we've just talked about. The main difference is it's cut an Avenging Hunter for a Singleton Glimpse the Impossible, which is another Modern Horizon 3 card. Essentially 3 mana, exile the top 3 cards of your library. You can play them this turn. If you don't, you make a spawn for each one.
Yeah. So generally is 3 mana, make 3 spawns is the only way I've really ever seen this card see play. Pretty much, my only thought on this card is if you're considering playing this in Ponza, you probably don't want to be playing Ponza. Play another deck that actually draws a card. This I really do not like this card in Ponza. It's like I've seen some decks run like 4, and then it's just like your 3 mana. You're like, oh no, they're gonna Thermocast it. Oh no, I'm just gonna Glimpse the Impossible and make 3 spawns. I'm like, sure, you're gonna next turn play your Altar Saw, but you're gonna hit a Utopias roll and then I'm gonna kill you. So cool. I really am not a fan of this card in Ponza in particular.
No, sort of even late game. Like, if you've got no cards in hand, you top deck and you top deck this, you play it, you can probably only play one thing after it. It's just like at that point, you just run Landmark Visionaries instead.
Yeah. There's much better 3-drops to play over than this.
Yeah, it seems like a bit of a, like, I'm going to test this card more than anything.
Yeah, I think it's a thing that there's a lot of lists in Ponza in particular have been quite different in the threats. Some ran Ents, some didn't run Ents, some ran Avenging Hunters, some didn't. Some ran 4 Glimpsy Impossible, some didn't. So like the Magic Online sort of 5 or sort of Ponza piles were definitely all out there. Some were running, 4 Sprawls, 4 Wild Growth, 4 Arbor Elves. There's definitely different ways that people have taken this list, and Glimpsy Impossible is one of the rabbit holes that you definitely don't want to go back down.
And then I guess finally, unless you've got any comments on that.
Yeah, the only thing is I noticed this list cut a land for a Rumble. Yeah. A third Rumble, which is probably something I don't hate. I do like the idea of 17 lands in Rumble. The more I play Rumble in Ponza, the more I like it.
I guess it's maybe a bit bold if you're playing against a lot of Ponza.
But yeah, that's what I was going to say. If you do expect a lot of mirror matches, cutting lands is probably not most ideal. But about all I've got.
And then lastly, the 8th place was the Glee combo deck. I believe this one was just black-green.
Yeah, it runs a bug.
With a red splash.
Yeah, it runs
for some reason.
Geothermal bug for the Molten Gatekeeper.
Oh, right, okay.
And it's more of a just in case, because the way this list wins generally is once it's settled its Baskin Brood scale, sadistically combo and had infinite colorless, it uses Legion Vanguard to sack infinite spawns to explore, mill its deck, then use Jack-O-Lantern, the Pauper All-Star, in its graveyard.
Cephalid Breakfast All-Star. Is there like a Cephalid Breakfast trick from Legacy where you mill your Jack-O-Lantern to fix your mana?
Yeah. So it basically exiles the Jack-O-Lantern from your graveyard, adds a mana of any colour, generally is red, to then unearth your Molten Gatekeeper, which for those that don't know is a new card from Modern Horizons 3, which is an Impact Tremors, which is 2/3, and it's whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, this deals 1 damage to each opponent. So then you sack a spawn, make a spawn, sack a spawn, make a spawn, infinite number of times, and basically dome your opponent for infinite. I like the idea of the win con. My only thing that I don't like about that is they're running 4 Troll and 4 Exhume
Plan.
as a backup plan, but it's sort of like, so say you game 1 go Troll Exhume, your opponent's bringing in Graveyard Hate that now also interacts with your win con, which I don't tend to like, which makes it a bit awkward for me. I do like, obviously, your Legion Vanguard can become infinites by keeping your card on top and all that sort of stuff. Like, you have, like, other ways to make more infinite powered guys. Like, you've got your Brute Skill, you've got your Legion Vanguard. So, like, attacking is an option. But, yeah, ultimately, I don't know how I feel about, basically, that splash damage of your Plan A, Plan B doesn't really work well together.
Yeah.
That's my only thing.
It's sort of an interesting take on the list. Like, I know the one I've built up is like a Wildfire, more mid-rangey build, where this feels like a very much all-in on. Although it has that Troll backup plan, it feels very much like all-in combo build. You're playing like little shitters like Iron Apprentice, which is just like a bad card essentially.
Yeah.
That is only there to like activate a Brute Skill at some point, or an Evo Witness at some point. It's sweet. It's cool to see. Like, I like the Legion Vanguard, mill your deck, get your Jack-o'-lantern, flashback your Molten Gatekeeper plan. Like, that's really cool. But yeah, it feels like it's sort of, you could fit that in a better shell. Like, maybe the Iron Apprentices, the Troll backup plan is probably not needed. It runs, is it Bequeathal or Bequeathal?
Yeah, however
as
you
well
say that.
as a 2/of copy, which is a green aura. Enchanted creature, and when the enchanted creature dies, you draw 2 cards. It's sort of, again, it's like I'm already comboing off. I'll draw some cards rather than stuff like Chromatic Star that can cycle and fix your mana even when you're not going off.
Yeah, the thing that I see about this deck, there's one thing the main thing that I do like, which also seems quite good, is the Gaia's Gift. As a lot of people have run Snakeskin Veil or the Tamio Safekeeper. This card seems interesting because it's not only a protection spell, it also starts off the Brood Scale. Obviously, the advantage of Snakeskin Veil is it's cheaper. It costs 1 green instead of 1 and a green for the adaptability. But it's also a win con. Like, if your Brood Scale's been in play, and then you go off.
It gives trample.
Gives trample.
Yeah.
So, which is quite a good thing, and that's one thing that I look at this as something that's actually really cool, and I really do like that. But looking at some parts of the list, like I look at the Bequeathal, as you say, and it looks like it's sort of leftover from a previous iteration of the list. It looks like because Bequeathal, if you have, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're comboing off with Evolution Witness and you have Energy Refractor in play, you can loop. You can Evolutionary Witness, have a statistically on the Evolution Witness, and you can basically draw your deck with that filtering the spawns, like enchant the spawn, sack the spawn, draw 2 cards, and then filter mana. And it looks like that's why it was originally there. Do you know what I mean? It looks like it's sort of like they've had Energy Refractor in here, and it's,
if you're doing that, is Chromatic Star not just better?
Chromatic Size is. I was just about to say Chromatic Size generally better, anyways. Either that or Implement of Ferocity. Both seem to do that a lot cleaner. Again, with the Iron Apprentice, I'm sure there's a card called, I think it's Mer Sapling, which I think is effectively the same card as Iron Apprentice, but it's a 1 mana 1/1 that sacks itself to add a counter.
Oh, I know what you mean. It's not Mer Sapling. It's Mer something. It's Mer something with an S.
I'm sure it begins with an S, but it's Mer something, and I feel like why not run that card? Like, I understand like this gets disputed away, and it puts a counter on something, but really, is that really like you got? Obviously, to me, you look like this card. I'm like, this card is there to loop with Evolution Witness, and Iron Apprentice does that really awkwardly.
I I feel overall, obviously, we're picking at the deck a bit, but it just shows how strong this combo is and
Yeah.
like this sort of core is that you can play stuff like Iron Apprentice and Bequeathal and a random Exhume plan,
Yeah.
and your deck's still like top 8 to 120 person event.
Yeah, that is exactly it. Like the combo itself and the engine around it is so incredibly surprisingly strong that like it carries.
And I think for me the biggest takeaway from this deck in particular is firstly the Molten Gatekeeper and the Jack-o'-lantern package is really cool. But with the Legion Vanguard in particular, like the Legion Vanguard seems really impressive.
Yeah, the Legion Vanguard seems like the best sack outlet I've seen. And when I seen this card, I was like, I didn't even know this was a card. For reference, most green blacklists that I've seen have ran either the Gorehound, the one that enters, is it Snarl and Gorehound, whenever a creature it surveils. Or they've ran Viscera Seer or Thought Picker Witch. And looking at Legion Vanguard, apart from they all cost 1, Legion Vanguard looks infinitely better.
Yeah, it gives you like, obviously they have the trolling as a backup plan, but to me like the Legion Vanguard is the backup plan because you can just play like a beatdown game like Mogwart.
Yeah.
Like you can sack a couple of random bits to this and then just like beat them down with a 4/4.
Yeah. 100%. Like the card looks incredible. As far as a 2-mana 2/2 that plays water sack can look incredible. But in a deck where you are making quite a lot of spawns, like it's running 4 rumbles, which makes spawns. You've got your Mez Fiends, which you happily want to sacrifice, with your 4 evolution, which is to sort of like loop them and stuff. Like that pseudo, like when you see a Mez Fiend in a matchup where it'll shine, I wouldn't be surprised if Vanguard evolution with the sort of looping thing goes. I would not be surprised if that's like some sort of value engine.
Even your brood skill, you can just pay 2 to adapt it, get a spawn, eat the spawn to your Vanguard. You've got 2 3/3s, or like you draw a card.
Yeah.
Seems pretty solid. But yeah, so that is the top 8 for the best Pauper player or Pauper player 2024 or something like that. There was 118 players. We've got the meta breakdown just here as well, which was basically the most played deck was Ponza. Second, or tied for second, was Grixis Affinity and Corgates. And then some other ones, I guess you might not expect. Ultratron was pretty highly played. There was 5% of the meta was Ultratron. And there's a FAMS. FAMS was 4% as well.
Which is an interesting 2 decks to play when you're expecting a lot of Ponza, but I guess that's why none of them are in the top.
But yeah, sweet looking event overall, very varied. A lot of new MH3 cards.
Mono Green Infect. 4 people played Mono Green Infect.
And some old school decks as well, like Ultratron. Like there's a Tyler Tribe in there, there's Turbo Fog, White Weenie. All that stuff is still very good.
For sure. Would you like to move on to the main event?
Yeah, and I feel like we've talked a lot about the Friday, so we'll go on to the Saturday, Saturday and Sunday, because it was obviously a 2-day event. There was, I believe, 638 players.
Sounds
Is that right?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
First place was Red Black Madness. Second place was Ponza. Third was Grixis Affinity. Fourth was Goblin Combo. Fifth was Hybrid Walls. Sixth was Red Black Madness. Seventh was Kuldotha, and eighth was the Jund Glee combo deck. And then the near misses, ninth, Tyler's Tribe in ninth in a 638 player event. And 10th was another copy of Kuldotha. I guess, I don't know if you just want to do the same and go through the decks again.
Yeah, that's fine.
As an overall, just looking at that top 8 for a 600 odd person event to have 7 unique decks in the top 8 with just 2 copies of Red Black Madness. That's a pretty big shout out to the format in general of being really good at the moment and really open.
My only thing to note, I guess, is that every deck was, I'm gonna say air quotes here, was red, because the walls is a bit not red but does run red cards. But yeah, I think every deck here was red, right, in some description.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that
But
that's
that's sort of the opposite of what we've seen
Oh,
like
yeah.
recently.
Yeah, for sure.
Like before MA3, we were saying all blues sort of maybe a bit of a problem. We're seeing basically the top 8 were a cold author deck and then like 7 blue decks.
Yeah.
Where we've sort of moved completely away from that. There's one blue deck really with the walls has blue cards in, but isn't really a blue deck. And I guess tribe in 9th.
Yeah. But yeah, pretty good. And you got a high showing of green in general as well. Like again, which is a rarity. Like green wasn't really a colour in Magic that you could play in Pauper. But
Yeah,
now it is.
and again, you've got the mix of there's combo decks, there's aggro decks,
Yeah.
and there's control decks all in there.
For sure. Definitely a good thing.
Anyway, so the first place deck was the Black Red Madness deck that I think we previously spoke about with alluding to Sneaky Snacker. Definitely the all-star deck for Sneaky Snacker as a card. Just being able to like pitch it to a blood and then draw a card and it comes back seems the perfect home for that card.
Yeah, 100%. And there's no way of casting this card either, which is still not a problem. Like there's infinite ways of discarding this card, and it still just shines. I've recorded a league with this deck, and it is pretty good. Even though I can't play it for shit, this deck is strong. For sure.
I guess this particular list, the standouts to me, there's no deadly disputes. Occasionally we're seeing like madness flipping between deadly dispute, highway robbery, and demand dancers. This one is basically just split demand dancers and highway robberies and just sacked off deadly dispute. Which definitely with Sneaky Snacker in particular seems like the place to be. Like you'd rather be discarding than sacrificing stuff. And then I guess the most interesting bit is the sideboard. The standouts being 3 Trespassers Curse, as well as 3 Contaminated Ground. Both of these cards seem very much a perfect like meta call for this tournament. The Trespassers Curse, obviously against the Glee combo decks, is really good. Like it just drains them out if they try and combo off. Also as usually against like Mugworts, Elves, and stuff like that. And then the Contaminated Ground is basically like an anti-Utopia Sprawl card. Because it doesn't stop artifact lands, obviously, does it? So it's literally just like it knocks off Utopia Sprawls from a land. So if your opponent is like on a low, or like Bogles, when you've got 1 land or 2 lands, one with a Utopia Sprawl on, taking them down to a swamp and a plains, or Ponza down to just a forest and a swamp, instead of a Utopia Sprawl with an Arbor Elf and stuff like that is a pretty big game.
Yeah, definitely. And it actually came up in the finals as well because it was obviously Madness versus Ponza, and it was literally exactly as you say. It was Arbor Elf into Utopia Sprawl, and then they just contaminated ground the Utopia Sprawl land. Not only the Utopia Sprawl falls off, but they're left with a swamp that they can on top of the Arbor Elf.
Yeah. I believe that's actually won that game as well.
Yeah.
Like the Ponza player ended up not having another land and not being able to cast anything.
So pretty good tech to be fair, and it's definitely shows that the pilot knew exactly what the metagame was going to be like. And I do think going in, like very similar to last week, we obviously seen a lot of Ponza in 5-0s and Affinity's doing well and stuff. Those 2 decks were definitely the decks on the radar coming into Paupergeddon, and it was great to see that this is basically how the metagame ended up, where it wasn't filled with Grix Affinity, it wasn't filled with Ponza, even though they both had their own successes in their own right. But it was definitely cool to see that obviously Madness managed to like build this deck to come around, like fight this. Definitely like Contaminated Grounds to me is not a card that I would think, that card's gonna kill Ponza. But here's this obviously great Madness player who's like, this is all I need. I just need to slow them down a turn or 2, and I will burn them up.
It's a sweet one. I think to be fair, like aggro has a decent Ponza matchup anyway.
Yeah.
Usually faster than them. Chrysalis makes that a bit more awkward. But this deck in particular is like so burn slanted that if you get like a couple of chips in early, you can win those games anyway, and the
Yeah.
contaminated ground just feels like an extra like tool for that matchup, just improve it even further.
Would you like
Anything
to?
else?
No, nothing about that. I guess the only thing to note for me is that they ran 4 vampire kits, which is definitely something I've been saying people to do for quite a long time.
Yeah, it definitely seems like the correct number, especially when the blood tokens now with the sneaky snackers are even more like key.
Yeah. Ponza?
The second place deck list, as we just mentioned, is Ponza. This is fairly similar to the one we talked about in the best pauper player event. The main difference being, I think it cut generous ends right to run 2 more malevolent rumbles.
Yeah, I think so. Something along them lines.
And I think it cut a land for a 4th wild growth as well.
Yeah, looks like it.
So very all in on the sort of early like Utopia Sprawl, Arbor Elf, Wild Growth on turn 1, and then like Rumble on 2 to try and fix its mana, rather than like trying to shuffle ents and stuff like that.
Definitely a solid deck. Obviously, the deck hasn't changed too much, like from talking about it previously. Like the sideboard looks like they've definitely considered other options, like 4 lightning bolts in the side, and Nilea's Disciple. But the main deck, as I said previously, like this would roughly be the main deck going into playing Ponza. Would be roughly what I would play these cards. Definitely solid.
Yeah, I think as we've said, Ponza is definitely a big winner from Mon Horizons 3. There's like little tweaks you can do here and there, but for the most part, the deck's pretty sorted.
Yeah.
Third place, Grixis Affinity. This is sort of what I was more thinking about when I would have built Grixis Affinity. There is no sneaky snackers in.
Yeah.
There's 2 Crackland Shamans, 2 Kenkus, and then the 4 Mers and 4 Familiars as the creature package. Even the spell package is quite odd as well, with just like a 2/2 split of cast down Galv Blasts and no counter spells or metallic rebukes. Not entirely sure what I think of that. Going to Galv Blast seems a bit odd to me, but
Yeah, I guess to me it depends on what it look. Obviously, they're hedging the bets with the 2/2 split. I guess you don't really need Guard Blast as much if you're running bridges on game 1. You're not only that you run 12 bridges, so you're not really too fussed about having to answer the Arbor Elf game 1 because you've got 12 bridges that they're not going to be able to blow up.
yeah.
But you have got the cast downs to be able to kill the relevant threats. Make sure the reach is dead or whatever, which is quite good. But I also do think that Rebuke and Counterspell are pretty bad in when you expect to see a lot of walls, Ponza. So freeing that slot up sort of makes up for a lot of room for other cards, which I'm not against.
Yeah. And then the only other real standout is, well, I guess there's 2 parts. It runs a Singleton Island still, but no Lorien. But it also runs 2 munitions main, which is something we don't often see. Like I would say like 90% of the Affinity decks we see run a Singleton munitions.
Yeah, I don't really understand the reason that I'm guessing. Obviously, I'm assuming longevity. Just making sure you see it because I guess the card is pretty strong generally. It also is backed up if they're boarding in Hydros, but again,
could also be a bit of an out to Thraben Charms game 1 if you're like leaning on a munitions and the blood up. You have another copy because obviously once it's gone, you can't get it back.
Yeah, I can see that. Definitely expected a lot of graveyard based decks as well with 3 spell bombs. Pretty sweet.
4th place, I imagine you'll have a lot to say about this one, is Goblin Combo.
Yeah.
To me, there's nothing massive that stands out, but I'm sure you'll pick something up.
Yeah, the only thing is there's no Crackland. They've went for 2 Pilferers and no Crackland Shaman, which to me just shows they are wanting to be as quick as possible, which with Glee Combo and Ponza, I'm not surprised at that. The only thing then that confuses me is they've kept the mana base the same as pre-MH3 with a 3/2 split of Bridge and Tramway and also still got the Carnarium, which is a real strange one. If I expect a lot of Ponza, they're your weak points for me.
Yeah.
The deck's always had a weird Ponza matchup, but that also to me exemplifies that. I guess other than that, it looks fairly stock. There's nothing too out the ordinary in the main. No, they aren't running the Eviscerators Insight, which I imagine one is probably going to end up being stock going 4-2-1 at least. Card seems pretty good.
I'm not sure if it's this pilot, but I recall seeing a Ponza versus Goblin combo game, I think in the top 8,
Yeah.
but it might have been in the later rounds where the Ponza player basically screwed them off black by blowing up a tramway and deglamoring a star. And I think they ended up basically winning that game because the Mogwarts player had a bunch of mountains.
Would not be surprised. It is an awkward matchup, especially when you're not prepared for it. With the old, to me, I look. I know it sounds silly, but I look at the mana base. I'm thinking this is a control mana base. You've got the 3 tramways. You've got a bog, which are not really cards that you want to be keeping in if you expect a lot of Ponza, because they not only come into play tap, they don't really advance your game plan in most cases. Bog generally used to be a card that's pretty free, but I think it's more of a liability now.
I think especially at the moment as well, there's like not a massive call for it. Like Terra and Dredge aren't really played a lot at all currently. So it's sort of just like middle in value apart from that.
Yeah. And you can definitely tell that it's almost that this pilot is definitely ample pilot with the deck. 100%. Obviously they end up, top 8 in a 600 player event, but the mana base to me looks pretty much like Amuda's mana base as it has pre MH3. So seeing that, you can definitely see why that's the case. It's very much the deck is half prepared for Ponza, but not completely. Yeah.
Moving on, the 5th place deck is Hybrid Walls. Again, very similar to the one we spoke about previously. The main difference is 2 bountiful landscapes in the mana base, which is the Rug, near Fetchland. They don't have an island in the sideboard, which I thought they might have if they were going that route. But I guess just as a bit of an alt land alternative. Other than that, the main deck's basically stock, and the sideboard is very similar as well, with the 1 Shield Wall Sentinel, and then the combo package alongside some Nihilate's Disciples and some Gorilla Shamans.
I really like the Coalition Honor Guard. Card's pretty solid. That sort of standard bearer effect probably quite reasonable right now as well. Not even just for core gates, but I definitely got scarpered by that by me trying to play Kali combo. But yeah, definitely a solid card, like that sort of effect. And you can definitely play this pretty quickly. So it's definitely probably worth putting some number in.
Moving on to 6th, it's another copy of Red Black Madness. Basically the same as the first place, but with the changes we mentioned, basically cutting a highway robbery for a deadly dispute and going down to 3 Vampire's Kiss. I'm not sure what for a Demand Dancers, a 4th Demand Dancers, I think.
Yeah, it looks like they've put a deadly dispute in and a Demand Dancers for a highway robbery
and a Vampire's Kiss.
The interesting thing to me as well is they've cut the Carnarium right for a Bajuka Bog.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming they're expecting a lot of snackers. But...
Yeah, again, a pretty on call. Like, the snackers aren't in the graveyard for that long, so the bog timing is a lot more critical than it is against something like Dredge or Terra. Then the sideboard, sort of a bit more what you'd expect, less like the first place list, more just generic, like Casting of the Fires, Extractor Confessions, less pointed towards Ponza.
Yeah.
And Glee combo.
Yeah. Which is fine. It's a generically okay sideboard. It's just very much the wide field, I guess. But if you expect it to be very weighted against Ponza and Glee combo, then definitely a good solid to go for the first place list for sure.
And then moving on, 7th place was the Kuldotha deck. It's probably the deck that's changed the least, but I think I like the change the most. It's essentially what you'd expect from stock Kuldotha, but instead of being on 4 lackeys and 3 implements, it's on only 2 lackeys, and instead has gone up on a land to 1 of Autonomous Furnace. And then in the sideboard, it's got 4 Serum Blazes as well. I believe instead of Pyroblasts. Obviously, Blue's on a pretty down right now, so that makes a lot of sense from cutting regard. But I also think Serum Blaze right now is just pretty good as well.
Yeah, 100%. I also like the fact that they've cut the lackeys because that card's bad. And it's a trap.
But I think overall it's fine, but I just don't think it's a 4-off card, and I think people have started to realise, well, this person especially has started to realise that you can just run 2. Like, you don't have to cut other pieces to run 4 of them.
My other advice is they can also realise they can run 0. I just don't like that card. I don't play this deck a lot, but I also don't like that card in that deck. Well, there we have it. Definitely, I do like the changes though. I do agree with you. I do like the changes to the deck. It definitely looks like a cleaner list. Probably, I don't know, run 2 Reckless Impulses or something if you want to keep the Reckless card in.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, Impulses in a list with an extra land make a lot of sense. And the lackey now does look like the space for something like that. So I could definitely see it.
There you go. That's the changes you need to make. Now here it is. Moving on to the 8th place deck.
Yeah, the final deck in the top 8 is the Bleed combo deck. This one is the Jund Wildfire version that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
It's definitely the version I feel like is at the moment is the better version to be on, just because its backup plan's so much better. But I know you're pretty hyped on this deck, so I'll let you go for it first.
Yeah, I really do like this deck. I like this combo. Let's say I like this combo generally. It definitely surprised quite a lot of people. Just for reference, for a bit of backstory, as I often search through Twitter and people who play these sort of wacky decks. This was 5-0'd by a guy that played in Paupergeddon called Luca Bidatoni, I believe. I think the 5-0'd with it on when I was talking about the first 5-0s. And they openly tweeted post Paupergeddon that basically they feel like this was a mistake. They were 4-0 and they literally were like, I should have just dropped. Because there was a handful of people that actually not only played this deck, but also said, oh, I built this deck and tried this deck because you 5-0'd with it. And the amount of agency probably would have gotten if this deck wasn't known would have been so much more. I would not be surprised if this did better than top 8, or he did better than top 8 if that was the case, because the combo is obviously pretty strong. But I do also like this battle plan. This Writhing Chrysalis battle plan is really strong. I've played like a Jund version, but not a Wildfire version, like leaning on the landscape. And Writhing Chrysalis was just a strong card to just play. And it's even better if you can play it on 3.
I think it sort of leans into what we were saying before with the Legion guy.
Yeah.
As it enhances your beatdown plan, but this just turns it up to 11. Like you have a brood scale, you have a Chrysalis in play, you just adapt your brood scale, and then you've got a 3/3 and a 5/7 or something like that, 5/6. That's a legit just beatdown plan, and you don't even have to try and combo off.
The only thing that I do also like about this deck as well, the rest, I do like the win cons in red. The Molten Gatekeeper is a good win con just generally. You don't need the Jack-o'-lantern. And also Makeshift Munitions is also a good win condition.
Yeah.
I do like. My big gripe with this deck, and my main gripe with this Jund deck, is the mana base is so hard reliant on bridges. It's all glued together by a Wildfire mana base. When Ponza and Grixis Affinity are really big decks, they're prepared for that. Like Ponza has a good bridge sideboard plan, and so does other decks that want to beat bridges. Like half the time, I have tried this deck, I've tried this list, pre-Paupergeddon, and you lose so many games from like the Glamour or Dust to Dust Your Lands, and it's like, oh, well, I've got no red, I'm stuck with 3 Riven Chrysalises in my hand, I'm just sitting here. It gets you get really awkward hands with that. But obviously, there is other matchups where that's obviously incredible. Like Cleanse and Wildfire is your draw engine. It's also your ramp engine. It's also your color fixing. I just wish the list evolved slightly to be less reliant on that.
Mm.
That's
the Glamour makes sense. The Dust to Dust seems like a bold bring-in. Like there's only 8 bridges basically, and then there's like some random shitters that you could target, like Ica Wellsprings and Chromatic Stars. But the Dust to Dust seems very bold. Like if they just go bridge, land, like your Dust to Dust does nothing basically that game.
Yeah, it does.
Unless you like down 3, hit 2 bridges, it's like basically an irrelevant sideboard card.
Yeah, the only awkward thing is though, you buy your bridges, it's like generally your only real red source. Like obviously you've got the 2 landscapes and a mountain, and then treasure tokens. Like it's awkward. It just, you get to this point where you're just like really awkward on red.
And Chromatic Stars.
Yeah, you would like 2 stars. Like it is awkward though. Like you end up having, because the backup plan is a good backup plan that just doesn't, and it just ends up being really awkward if they can stop your red. Is the problem. If they can stop it early, like if you can Wildfire hit your mountain, you're golden. But yeah, that's my only thing that I found with the deck when I tried it, was that basically they were just able to interact with your mana, where previously in other lists I've tried, because your green black deck, you try to be as untapped as possible, like because you're trying to combo as fast as possible. It never really, you never had that slowed down game plan, and they also then couldn't interact with your mana base.
I guess the bonus of that is though, like if they're bringing in stuff like Dust to Dust, they're probably not bringing in much for your combo. Whereas in the green black version, I imagine they'll just bring in more combo stuff, like combo hit stuff. So like if they're trying to Dust to Dust your land, you might just then be able to just randomly combo.
Yeah.
Or like if they're like, oh, I'll Glamour you on turn 2, and then you just play Brood Skill and put a sadistically on it, like I wish I had that Glamour.
Yeah, it definitely, like there is pros and cons to both. But I think obviously as a week, well, let's say week 1 is the first biggest event, like this combo, the Jund version being like probably the breakout version, is probably a good place to start for sure. And obviously Chrysalis being a great backup plan is obviously, as most people have seen in Ponza, like this card is strong. It's very, very strong, and it's even stronger in here when you can make it an infinite while just generally comboing off. Yeah, and I do like the Jund color combination for the deck. I just
maybe just a way to tweak the mana base a bit more, because obviously like stuff like Jeskai Ephemerate, you're not really scared of them Glamour in your land or Dust to Dust in your, like that's not really a thing that occurs very often. So there's maybe a bit of like a disconnect there between those, because obviously eight bridges isn't a lot of to like justify Dust to Dust. So even the Glamour's really like the Glamour's more, it hits sadistically as well. And even then it's not the greatest at that, because you can just combo off in response, right?
Yeah.
Assuming you've got like a guy in play, or a way to put a counter on your man. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's just maybe variance, like bad variance from your league, or it just seems very, very odd.
Yeah, my main thing is the reason why this was an issue is basically, well, to me, was something that came up as I spoke to you, is I tested this deck all last week, not this particular list, but this combo in basically about 8 leagues overall. And I've played Jund variants, just not artifact variants before that. And I literally it was in Ponza's 5-0 hype. Like, I literally played one league, I literally played 4 games of Ponza. If you have seen the video, like, it literally was 4 games of Ponza. I have never, ever, ever dropped a whole entire match against Ponza, ever. Literally dropped one game.
Yeah, it feels like a good matchup.
It's so free. They literally don't have any removal. You could literally play your guy, play sadistically, even wait 3 turns, then combo off, and you're still fine. But this deck, in this particular league, I versed 3 Ponzas and went all 3. All 3 of them were just terrible. Like, your lands were coming up like tapped, it was really clunky, and then they're blowing up your red sources, and you're sitting there with all your red cards in you. And
maybe you just like cut Colony Garden and put one more landscape in. Because
Yeah.
there is like outside of the 8 bridges, there's still like a lot of red sources. You've got what three lands, 2 chromatic stars, 3 deadly disputes. What's that? 7. No, more than 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 red sources without the other 8 lands.
Yeah, I think the thing is though,
So if you just like added in another twisted landscape.
Like, the only thing is there, by obviously your lands, like your 2 twisted landscapes and your mountain, you need to be progressed enough to actually cast the other cards that make your red sources. Where there's a lot of times where you'll like, obviously you'll play a tap land and then they'll glamour it a turn later. You know what I mean? You're not progressed enough to deadly dispute things, or you're not progressed enough to put your chromatic stars out there. And even then, it almost feels like, because your lands are now targetable, like digging for the combo is a lot harder, and then also you're splashing red for a 4-drop. So I think that was why it felt clunkier. So I don't.
But is Chrysalis something you even want to be doing against Ponza? Like, do not just remove those.
I don't know. I didn't in
like,
the.
Just seem like they're gonna run into their Chrysalis and they both bounce off each other.
I think that.
I guess yours maybe defends against theirs, but
your Chrysalis generally is better. Like, when I played like a non-artifact version, it was good at being a win con that you just play blocks theirs and then you untap combo off and it either kills them or kills their threat. And having 2 infinite guys is good enough against Ponza. Like, they can only chump block for so much, but then getting to that point, then is it a thing? It was awful, but then there was times where you're like, I've got Wildfire, I'm on the play out of Wildfire, the Utopia Sprawl. Like, it's a weird thing, but it may be a tweak to the mana base, it may be a tweak to the slight deck. And I do like the Jund version. Like, I do think Chrysalis is a good addition. I do think Kraklan has the potential to be a good card against.
I guess how many of those games are you on the draw? Because again, it does feel like if you're on the play, like you say, if you just got tapped land into untapped land, you probably just win. Like, what if you've got Wildfire or you just like deadly dispute the land, the target, or whatever.
Very odd, for sure. But
yeah, very, very sweet deck.
It is definitely a solid deck, and I do like the Jund version. I do like the Jund sideboard cards. I do wish it lent a little bit more. This list lent more into the Rumble as well. It runs a lot of spells in the sideboard and runs things like Duress in the main, along with obviously Wildfire, which are like, they're all fine cards. I don't know. I just really like the idea of Rumble not missing. I don't like to make augurs out of green cards.
Yeah. The Duress did seem like an odd one to me. It's sort of the only real standout that seemed just like, could this be like Mez Fiends or like the Conquistador guy or stuff like that?
But this list roughly this, not this exact list, but this sort of concept was the Jund deck that did well in the Friday and the Saturday challenges. So like, it obviously works and it's obviously a strong deck. But it's
how much twin is good.
Yeah, who knew? Two card reasonable combos is actually a good thing. But yeah, it's definitely a good starting point. It'd be interesting to see how the combo itself develops and color combinations, for sure.
I guess finally, just having a quick look over the meta before we finish off.
Yeah.
The day 1 meta, Grixis Affinity, was the most played deck, followed by Ponza, then Rakdos Madness, then Kuldotha, then the Black-White Blade sort of shells as the top 5. Going into day 2, Affinity almost dropped out of that top 5. Ponza ended up moving from 2nd place to 1st place in the most played. Kuldotha was 2nd, Glee Combo was 3rd, and Grixis Affinity dropped from 1st to 4th. And then Rakdos Madness moved down to 5th. So yeah, Ponza and Kuldotha obviously converting very well. Glee Combo as well, converting extremely well. I think day 1 it was 3, 6, 7, 8, 9th most played deck, and moved up to 3rd.
Yeah, there was 12 pilots that didn't day 2 who were playing Glee Combo. Out 27.
But yeah, Grixis Affinity just not converting very well at all. I think it went from 88 to 14.
Which is an incredibly bad conversion rate.
And sort of similar for Rakdos Madness, it wasn't as bad. It went from 54 to 10. Obviously won the full thing, but yeah, the conversion rate wasn't actually that great.
No, I think Madness has a lot of sway matchups though.
Yeah,
I think is probably a big thing for that. Like it has good, like obviously it's an aggressive deck and it generally does like favor Ponza like we discussed, but it's definitely more susceptible to like even just the way its lands fall. Like it could literally just have a double Barons start and you're pinging your opponent for 2, but they're both thermocastable lands, and then that actually like screws your colours or screws the way you can play stuff. Where obviously Kuldotha's basically just got all mountains. It's casting something on 1, it's casting something on 2, and then if they do then Ponza you, you're still casting stuff.
Kuldotha there is a big winner as well. I think basically a 50% conversion rate to day 2. I think that's a 37. It's very blurry. But it's either 37 or 32 or something like that, and 18 in day 2. So yeah, very, very good week for Kuldotha.
Yeah. The only thing to touch on as well is I think that Walls was actually quite high up there, but the way the metagame split was actually really weird. Like they split it in 29 was on Walls combo, and then 12 was on Walls Cascade, which they were all weirdly named because half the time you're seeing Walls combo and then they're just boredom party, and I'm like, well, this is a Walls combo.
Yeah, so it sort of went from what 41 is that to 12.
Yeah.
So like roughly a quarter converted.
Yeah.
Which makes Kuldotha look even better. It's basically 50% converted.
Yeah.
And Black White Blade basically just disappeared, right, as well. That's
roughly.
one of the top 5 from day 1 that I didn't mention. It went from 32 to
it's actually
maybe 1.
I think it's in other.
If that, yeah,
it moves to other.
Less than 2 basically. So a really, really bad conversion rate for Black White Blade, which sort of ties up with what we were saying with Edicts being bad and you're leaning really hard on Familiar.
Yeah. We also say 4 slivers day, dude.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
I don't actually know how many slivers was played. It was less than 10.
Yeah.
And 4 day 2, so that might be like conversion rate similar to Kuldotha for slivers. If not better, there might only be 4.
Yeah, could be 100% conversion rate.
But yeah, a mega event overall.
Yeah.
The Pauper metagame looks really sweet. Like there's so much variety.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's clearly like developed a lot from Modern Horizons.
Yeah, definitely. Would you like to move on to the shoutouts?
Yeah, go for it. We may as well finish off. We've been rambling forever.
Yeah, so a shout out obviously to Boost MTG and also Bleach, Sap, or whatever you would like to call themselves, or go by, like obviously for running such a mega event. It was great to have them a whole English stream as well. They reached out obviously to Will Hall, shout out to Will, who obviously went through to the next level and not only learnt the Pauper metagame, but has fell in love with it, and then basically cast all weekend and shared his open and honesty on the experience, and it was great to listen and see his experience while casting. Shout out obviously just to everyone casting, to be fair. There was obviously Adaptor, there was Gavin, Emma, Hyson throughout the weekend. Just great casting, great to have it all in English, to be honest. It was definitely appealed to us as non-Italian speakers, for sure.
Yeah, I think it seemed like it paid off overall for them as well, because I think it peaked at like 1,300 viewers or something like that, which is the highest I've ever seen it. Over all the years that I've been watching Paupergeddon.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the main thing to me is the only reason why it probably didn't peak even higher was that it probably wasn't advertised as much as being an English only stream.
No.
It was only until you watch it that you realise, these Italians that are normally speaking Italian are now speaking English.
Yeah.
Because I remember asking the question, to be fair. I asked I spoke to Emma and Will and asked, like, is it all English? And they were like, I don't know. So, like obviously their parts are in English, they don't speak Italian. But it wasn't clear to anyone what the plan was. And
I think the big part of that obviously was the times when Adapto and Hyson were casting. They obviously went out the way to speak English as well, which was really good.
Yeah, 100%. And it was great. It was great to follow everything from even their thoughts on like the play patterns, and the just all round experience of the production level was insane. Kudos to a lot of them.
Yeah.
Finally, shout out to Kirby and Bako for making the Magic Online challenges possible for us to cover, because otherwise we would not be able to check on what top 8 did or whatever. So yeah, it was great for them to obviously clutch up and give us that data. Moving on to hot takes.
Yeah, so our hot takes from last week, these I guess are a bit odd because we're sort of a bit spotty on the challenge information and missed the challenge, so some of them we can't really clarify, but we'll do our best. My first one was that Bogles and Black Red Madness would be the aggressive decks of choice for next week. It sort of does seem that way, but Kuldotha has definitely not fallen off. Kuldotha is still very much a good option for an aggressive deck if you want to play one.
Yeah, definitely. My next one was that Refurbished Familiar and Snacker will make its way into a blue-black Fair Affinity deck. The only reason I can't say this is because I can't see any deck lists. I can't check.
It wasn't in the 2 top 8s that we got.
Yeah.
But there might be one in the top 30. We'll find out. And my last one from last week was that we would see a Kuldotha-less week in the top 8s. Like I said, that was definitely not correct. Obviously, it did well at Paupergeddon in the main event, and we had it on one of the challenges as well, the Saturday. Oh no, and the Friday. Yeah, won the Friday as well. So yeah, just Kuldotha everywhere. Still, deck is still good.
My last one was that Colgate will take a huge decline next week, and it's hard to tell based on Magic Online. Obviously, it won the Player of the Year. It was still there in Geddon, but based on the Saturday data, there wasn't a single one registered. But we can't see what Friday was like, so I don't know. Yeah, so it looks sort of true for Magic Online, but I don't know how true that is against the rest of it.
I think, to be fair, even at Paupergeddon, it wasn't like massively played right in the main event. Or really, what was it like pilots in the Player of the Year event as well?
It was the joint third.
Okay, so it was quite highly played in that event.
Yeah.
But then in the main event, was it
27 pilots of the
27 day 1, and then disappeared day 2.
Disappeared day 2.
So it had less than 2 out of that 27 convert.
Yeah.
Which is pretty telling, really, isn't it? It's like you went from 27 players to maybe 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a good place to be a Colgate player in.
No, unless you just dodge the Ponza till you can ID and then just win.
Like to move on to hot takes for next week?
Yeah, so my first one is basically the opposite to what I said last week. Well, Kuldotha will increase. Obviously, it's got a really good Ponza matchup, especially now Ponza's basically cut all the spot removal. So your early like blast runners and stuff like that just go unchecked. So I imagine that will increase again in numbers.
Yep. Makes sense. My next one is that Glee Combo will have at least 2 decks in either of the top 16s of the weekend. We'll be covering Monarch next week as well, right? No, it'll be the week after, right?
It'll be the it's next week.
Yeah. So we'll be. It's coming up, innit?
Yeah, it's next week.
Yeah. So we'll be covering that as well. So I'll include the Monarch in there. It'll definitely be top 16, and I think they'll all be different. And I'm not just talking like
I feel like that's like the freest hot take ever. There'll be 2 Glee combo decks.
Yeah.
In the top 16 as well. Like
I can say top 8 if you'd like. I'd change it.
No, I feel like there definitely will be 2 in the top 16. There'll probably be like 6 in the top 16, if not
Nah.
more.
It's all right. They'll adapt to that. They'll adapt to the Glee combo, and they'll have to fight its way through, and they'll all look different.
I think that's the thing. They all do look different, so the actual like combat in it is not as straightforward.
That's fair.
Like you say, with like the obviously born into glamours and stuff against the Jund one, like you can't then do that against the Black Green one, or it makes less sense against the Black Green. My last one for next week is the Ponza-less red green deck. So the red green Ponza, but without the land destruction, will increase in representation. I'm going to say we'll see like 4 copies in the top 16. It probably won't overtake the normal Ponza, but I think there'll definitely be a few copies in there.
I'm going to remind myself what I mean because by writing something in brackets because I'll forget next week what that means.
What Ponza-less?
Yeah, it confuses me already.
It's just Ponza without the Ponza. If you don't want any Ponza on your Ponza, you play Ponza-less.
Is that how it works? Right then. My next one is that Ponza will just generally will take a decline in representation. It's definitely a deck that can be preyed upon within reason. Give them clunky hands, sitting there with a bunch of board and parties in hand, and all these Kuldotha players are rocking rays, and that's it. Bang goes your Utopia Sprawl land and all that sort of jazz.
I feel like that might be a 2-week take.
You reckon?
I feel like everyone's going to be hyped off Paupergeddon, and we'll just have Glee versus Ponza in basically most of the top 8.
You reckon?
Maybe Black Red Madness as well.
Yeah, just to top it off. Just before we close out, I did want to mention this because I'm not very rarely right. Is basically the reason why I wanted to mention this. So, backstory, day 1 predictions. There was Grixis Affinity everywhere. Everybody was playing Refurb Familiar. And what happened in general was that everyone was like, oh my god, Paupergeddon's going to be absolutely doom and gloom. It's going to be Refurb Familiar Central. My response to this was, there's going to be one Grixis Affinity in the top 8 of Paupergeddon because everyone's going to adapt. And second of all, Glee combo is better than what we think it is, and it's definitely going to at least top 16. And it's very rarely that I'm right. And that was day 1. So, give me a pat on the back. I want some self-justification because I'm very rarely right. And I was right. I was so happy that I was right. I actually had to tweet it. I tweeted it. I was so happy I was right. There we go. And that's it. That's all I would like to mention. That was sort of my hot take that wasn't in the podcast. That I just needed to mention it. There you go.
Welcome to Casting Comments, where Teasdale is right.
Yeah, once. Once occasionally. Anything else to add?
No, that's it from me.
So thank you all for listening. Apologies for the long episode, but I know you have all enjoyed our deep dive into Paupergeddon. Do not forget to share this episode and the podcast with your friends, your family, your local Pauper community, and even your software engineer, mainly because they can then get the deck lists uploaded, so we can see them. That is all from us at Casting Comments. Until next time, and do not forget to stay hydrated. Peace!
Bye.